I'm proud that the guys found a way to get the job done. Credit to ULM. Love Coach Richard and the job that he does. I was in that league with him for 3 years, and he's a really good coach and a good man. And they played well and took advantage of a lot of our miscues and some of the lack of energy. I was particularly disappointed with the energy that we brought forth, simply because playing with a high level of energy is becoming ingrained in our team, and it's a part of our identity. And coming off a disappointing loss on a long trip, and then Thanksgiving, we came back Friday and Saturday and had 2 of our best practices of the year. And so the fact that that energy from the practice floor didn't rear its head to start this game was particularly disappointing. And I think that says something about where we are right now and how far we have to go.
With the increased energy and the doubling of your offense in the second half compared to the first, does your halftime speech now become your pregame speech?
No. No, it's just part of growth. And I don't have the energy to have that speech before every game anyway. So, yeah, I don't think they can handle that too much of that. I got to pick my spots. But it's the first time I threw something at halftime. And so I didn't hit anybody. But they responded. I do give a lot of credit to what I like about Chuck is that Chuck receives the truth like a man. He doesn't fight the truth. And when you hit him with the truth, he receives it accordingly. And by virtue of his presence in that particular way, I see some corresponding growth with Z. I can coach Z a little bit harder now, and his response, now this is the second time we've come out of a halftime, and he was the leading voice. And so that's encouraging. And Sam's presence aligned with that, and those 3 guys really led us. And so a lot of good has come out of this game.
Coach, one of the biggest issues you guys had in the first half was rebounding. Chuck said you changed a little bit on the scheming, not trapping as much in the post. How much of your guys' success in the paint in the second half was scheming, and how much of that was just the energy that your guys came up with?
100% energy. The scheming changed because our energy was so poor that when you trap the post, you got to be on a string, and all 5 guys have to be in sync with one another. And instead, what we were doing was opening up the floor and creating opportunities for them that we generally take away from people with our energy. And so, but the energy was, without question, the difference.
You mentioned this is the first time you yelled at him at halftime.
No,
or
I didn't say that.
threw something. And you get that type of a response. How do you find the right buttons to push with a certain group each year, and seeing them respond when, have some things flying around the room a little bit, kind of gets
Well, I mean, people always say that nobody knows a team like their coach. And you go through this whole journey together. You guys have heard me say in the past that every team has a 1-year lifespan, 1-season lifespan. So this group will never be together again after this, even though you might have some of the same guys back. And the reality is, we're growing together. And so my response at halftime was a byproduct of the expectations that they have created in me based on the way they practice every day. So they've raised my expectations for the group, and our whole discussion is now we have to raise our standards internally, that you guys have to take ownership of those standards. It can't just be me. And that's the area that I think we're approaching, and we're not there yet. And I think tonight was another teachable opportunity in that regard.
How much does it help Sam to hit a couple of threes, and just by having that on film, make teams respect him more on the perimeter? Does that open up more room for him to get inside?
I don't know if it's going to change the way people guard him or whatever. Sam's capable of making shots. It's more about him getting lost in the game and not being so focused on that, being a better cutter, a better rebounder, a better defender, and when he's open, shoot the ball with confidence and know that I believe in him, and just don't make it too much more than that. And Sam's biggest problem is he works so hard at it, and he's so determined. And he's got to trust himself a little bit more instead of just focusing on that, because he's such a complete player that when he focuses on that, he abandons some of the other things that make him special. And that's only part of his game, and sometimes, because he works at it so hard, he makes it bigger than it needs to be because he's a better player than that.
How big of a kind of measuring stick in terms of how you're viewing the progress of this team is Wednesday night going to be against Dayton?
I don't look at it like
Okay.
measuring stick. There's an opportunity to win a game and get better at taking care of our home court. But, you know, it's a game we should expect to come out and win. We know it's going to be a hard game. I know the staff intimately, and I have the utmost respect for them, so I know what we're up against. But for me, it's not about a measuring stick. It's more about an opportunity to win a game.
Coach, the response for your team, can you talk a little bit about just in general? Couple players come to mind. You talked about Samuel Williamson in the defensive rebound more. He had 8. Halftime, you talked about Zurich coming out. He had a big second half and really defensively was much more engaged. Just in general, just talk about the response that you liked from your team.
Yeah, and you know what? It was being compared to the West Virginia game, but I thought we came out of the West Virginia game in the second half, and we kind of responded right away, coming out of the locker room. And tonight we didn't. It was still dragging. It went from 7 to 11 at one point. And so we finally wound up making a run. And the correlation between our defense and that run cannot be dismissed. And I think there's always an inclination, well, you guys were scoring more and you made some shots and you got out in transition. It's a direct correlation to us guarding. And no matter how many times I say that, kids get a little bit of amnesia, especially when you start scoring. It starts to feel good, and but they have to understand that everything starts with that, and the pace and everything we do is going to flow from that. And so I think that's where the response really eventually made a difference.